all know Section 31 is breaking me. But now I just may survive thanks to Andreas T. Andreas joined my Patreon, thank you so much. Thanks to your support, my heart it does touch. I will continue to push on with my brain and my wit. I just wish Section 31 was not so full of shit.
Hey guys, Michael J. Crawford here, and welcome to part 13 of our Section 31 review. Well, before I get started today, I do want to say thank you to Andreas T., the latest Patreon supporter. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Every little bit helps, and hopefully eventually I'll get to a point where I don't have to go out and drive Uber every day, and I can put out more of these videos, or maybe just make them better quality, because Lord knows that could help. Anyway, let's get right into it. Last time we learned that Georgiou is not written well. Like that's a surprise to anybody.
The asymptote coil is gone.
Someone must have scavenged it for the terbium. Well, find another one. This thing should fly.
Okay, believe it or not, I actually have a couple things to say about this. First of all, good job in the fact that while it sounds like nothing but technobabble, terbium is a real thing. And in fact, it is an extraordinarily valuable rare metal. Granted, you have to go through some sci-fi technobabble BS to make it actually a working part of a space engine, but whatever. However, that being said, the coil that she refers to, now, the problem that I had was at first I couldn't quite make out what she said.
The asymptote coil is gone. Asymptote.
It doesn't quite sound right. But after going back and once again watching it on Paramount Plus with the subtitles on, it says that this is a asymptote coil. Now, I did not, not being an expert on such things, I did not know what the word asymptote means. Well, asymptote is a term in geometry, actually. It is a line that continually approaches a given curve, but never meets it at any finite distance. In other words, it's a line that's constantly curving just enough to avoid contact with something else. Okay, great. But that's so it's see this is the level of technobabble that we kind of saw in Voyager, where they literally had to crack the event horizon, which is simply a mathematical boundary.
What if we've already made a crack in the ice?
When we first entered the event horizon.
If we could find our entry point, we might be able to slip out the way we came in.
So, we'd be looking for a subspace instability in the event horizon. What would make it show up on our sensors? Warp particles!
In the episode Parallax, Bellana came up with a theory that they could simply go back out of an event horizon the way they came in because they cracked it. But if the singularity is a mathematical boundary, how does that make any sense? Well, similarly, an asymptote or however you say it, is a mathematical expression of a line based on a graph based on a type of curve that's on that graph. So, likewise, it makes zero sense. All that being said, why didn't they just say that someone stole dilithium from the warp coil or something? Why not just use already established Trek lore and you don't have to invent new technobabble every time you have a problem. In fact, that's one of my big problems with shows like Voyager, is that they are constantly coming up with more and more technobabble just to kind of sound like they know what they're talking about. in this particular case, they want to establish that the ship doesn't run. The one thing that everybody who's ever watched any version of Star Trek knows is that without dilithium crystals, ships don't run. And that has been established all the way from the original series through Discovery. We've had entire storylines about the importance of dilithium crystals. And we also know that dilithium crystals are very valuable. So why not just have it so that some raiders came and took the dilithium out of the warp chamber? That would make perfect sense. Then their mission could be to go to the wreckage of what's left of their old ship to find the dilithium. Hey, look, it's not that hard to write.
Maybe the cargo hull.
Oh, no. Everyone stays together, all right? Limits the possibilities of you killing us. Let's go to the cargo hold, please.
Now, let me be clear here. I am not knocking Sam Richardson's performance as Quasi. And really, this scene, under the right circumstances, could be very funny. The way that he delivers these lines is great, except that it doesn't fit everything around it. He was just throwing these barbed comments at Georgiou, basically insulting her and challenging her on her relative wisdom in creating this doomsday machine, and yet he's terrified that she's going to murder him at any second. The writers need to make up their mind exactly which direction they're trying to go in, because the way they keep popping back and forth honestly just makes no sense.
Aren't you coming?
Yes, I couldn't be more excited.
So you mean to tell me that this group of uber elites, think about this. Section 31 is supposed to be these ultra, uber, mega undercover secret agents, right? And yet, despite the fact that these guys are like the best of the best of the best as far as being sneaky, they walk into Georgiou's bar and she spots them like nothing flat, right? She has no problem eyeballing every one of these guys and knowing that they were all Section 31. And nobody notices that Fez's demeanor just radically shifted from his Irish Jim Carrey impersonation to whatever that's supposed to be. And look, I know I was just defending Sam Richardson in his performance with Quasi, but you will not hear me similarly defend Sven Rygrock as far as his performance as Fuzz. Why? Well, because the silly Irish accent was at least in part his idea. And so, no excuses.
So, can you fix it?
I'm not even sure it's broken. It's just missing a part. Look, this torn wiring looks dramatic, but this equipment has redundancy built in. There's an easy workaround.
Look, it's one thing to miss Trek lore because you didn't research everything. It's another thing to maybe miscalculate something because you're not a physicist or whatever. But this is just stupid. This isn't, a slight oversight. This isn't, golly gee, we just didn't know the difference between, a warp core and a Heisenberg compensator or something. No. This is just plain stupid. Because if you listen carefully to what Garrick says here,
I'm not even sure it's broken. It's just missing a part.
she is clearly stating that the device in question is not broken, simply a part has been removed. Okay, fair enough. But then, the very next thing out of her mouth...
Look, this torn wiring looks dramatic, but this equipment has redundancy built in. There's an easy workaround.
So there's an easy workaround because it's broken. But the person who broke it wasn't thorough enough to deal with the redundant systems, and so it'll be easy for her to bypass whatever damage they caused. So is it broken or is it not broken? I know. quantum. Oh, and I know, because it's quantum, it both is and is not damaged until someone observes it and it collapses the waveform. But if while the waveform is being collapsed, you happen to put a crack in the waveform, then maybe you can escape through it, because why not? Hey, at least the Technobabble couldn't possibly get any worse, right?
Except somebody ripped out the theta junction.
Look, if this were a wonderful episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, a really good episode of Enterprise, an outstanding episode of Deep Space Nine, or heck, even a good episode of Voyager, I might let this one slip by without too much hullabaloo. But at this point, I'm just so annoyed with everything they do that I can't help but call this out. I know, I'm just nitpicking here. But at the same time, it's just really, really irritating that the writers didn't take even the slightest iota of effort to try and make some of what they're writing actually make sense. You see, the word theta is simply the 8th letter of the Greek alphabet. That's all it is. And to say the theta junction doesn't make a lot of sense unless, like, if you were looking at the 8th junction in a series, possibly because you decided that because you're a hyper intellectual, instead of using numbers, you don't even want to use, modern English letters. Instead, you'd rather use Greek letters because quantum. But in this particular case, I don't think that that's even what they're going for, because she doesn't say, it's not like there's a bunch of junctions there and the 8th one has been damaged or something. She just says the theta junction has been taken. Like there's an item that they would call a theta junction. Now, who knows? Maybe by the 23rd, 24th, whatever century this is supposed to take place in, there's such a thing as an object called a theta junction. But as of today, theta, while it is used in physics, it's only used as a symbol for various angles or other variables. It's not used as a proper noun or a descriptor of an object. So am I being nitpicky? Yes. Do I care? No. Because at this point, this show has pissed me off so much that I just want to scream from the high heavens that I am done with this shit.
I hope that you enjoyed my video attraction. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as a reaction. Please check the links below to check out the video I was riffing on. And if you like what I do, join my friends on Patreon. Andreas T, Jason Rogers, Sean Gaclone, Twinkle Teaches, Leighton Kresman, Lee Crystal, Laura Finney, Thomas Potts, 47 Yorktown, Rural Hess, Wchia Daisuke, Firetail, T Stoney, Indie Tiger, Captain Fandom Nerd.